After scaling the wall, Dogman, Grim, and Dow encounter some guards who they kill. They take their clothes to disguise themselves as guards, and they're able to move more freely within the fortress. Fight is not going well for Logan. When he gets backed into a corner like this, he becomes the Bloody Nine, which is the raging maniac who lusts for blood from whoever, friend or foe. This happens, he becomes the Bloody Nine. He starts to fare a little bit better when the Bloody Nine takes over, and the strap on Fenris's calf that Colin West had loosened falls off. Logan, or the Bloody Nine, stabs Fenris through this calf once it has been exposed, and when he goes in for another strike, Fenris catches Logan off guard and wraps him up in a hug and starts to squeeze him. Dogman and Grim, while they're searching the walls of Carleon, do start to hear singing or chanting. They follow this sound and eventually do find Carib, who is the witch that they've been looking for. They start to sneak up on her, and before they can strike, she notices them and she mind controls them both. Carib tells Dogman to kill Grim, which he agrees to, and just as he's about to do it, Black Dow pops out of left field and buries his axe in Carib's skull, killing her. When this happens, Fenris' strength begins to lessen. He begins to falter, and the Bloody Nine notices this moment of weakness in Fenris. He takes his sword and he stabs him through his demon side to his fleshy side, pierces all the way through, and that is what kills Fenris. I always thought that it was weird why Fenris only armored the half of his body that was vulnerable, because he's always exposed to this strategy where someone could just, okay, well, I can't harm the side that you're exposing to me, but I can just use it as a pathway to get to the side that can harm you. I don't know. After the Bloody Nine kills Fenris, he is dropped to the ground, and after a few moments, he switches back, or Logan takes over again. Logan then walks into Carleon. He goes up to Bethad, who has been watching this whole time, and he he slams his head into the ground a couple of times, killing him, throws him off of the battlements, and everybody's loving this, apparently. They decide and start chanting that Logan is now the king in the north. Or excuse me, king of the Northmen. After Logan has been proclaimed the king of the Northmen, he lets them know that they now need to repay the Union's favor for helping them take the north by going south and fighting against the Gurkish in Ottawa with the Union. Crummock and Black Dow stay behind in the north. We go back to Ottawa, and at this point the Gurkish are knocking on their front door. A Gurkish parley comes to discuss Ottawa's terms of surrender with Jazal. Jazal, of course, refuses to surrender, and the Gurkish begin their assault on Ottawa. We go back to Glocka, who is continually put under more and more pressure from both sides that he's playing currently. On one side, he has Archlector Sult, who wants him to investigate Jazal's parentage. And then on the other side, we have Valent and Balk, who direct him to not conduct this investigation. And Glocka is increasingly feeling backed into a corner and not feeling quite sure what he's going to do and how he's going to get out of this. Glocka is becoming increasingly more suspicious that there is a mole in his Inquisition crew. Doesn't know who it is, but he needs to find out. He goes to High Justice Morovia to ask him for his help against Archlector Sult. He wants some evidence against Archlector Sult to show that he has committed treason. So Glocka begins working on this. Now we go back to Pharaoh, who up to this point hasn't done a whole lot, but that's about to change. Bayaz, Kwai, and Yolwei decide to go to the Maker's house to see if they can find any weapons that they might possibly be able to use against this fight against the Gurkish. Pharaoh wants to go, but Bayaz tells her, no, you can't go. Pharaoh says okay, but she decides to follow them anyways without being noticed, and she makes it to the Maker's house, waits for Bayaz to open the door, and sneaks in. Once inside, after a little bit of walking around, Pharaoh begins to feel a pulling, and it is pulling her in a direction, so she begins to follow this pulling that she is sensing. And she happens upon a ball on the roof that's about the size of a fist, and she decides that the pulling is coming from this ball, so she decides to climb up a wall to reach it. After reaching the ball, she grabs it, she goes back down to the ground floor of the Maker's house, and upon picking up this, looks like a rock, she feels some unusual energy coming from it, and at that point Bayaz tells her that she has found the seed. It's actually been in the Maker's house the entire time. And while this is happening, Malachus Kwai attempts to take the seed away from Pharaoh. Bayaz responds by attacking Malachus Kwai. He's flung across the room, hits the wall. He appears to be dead, but suddenly he gets back up. Malachus Kwai begins to get back up, and by every right he should be dead. And his disguise, or now we know it's a disguise, begins to dissolve away, and it is revealed that it is not Malachus Kwai, it is in fact Ptolemy, the Maker's daughter. Ptolemy reveals obviously she is alive, and she has become an eater. She broke the first and second law, and she has been looking for the seed. She also reveals that Malachus Kwai has been dead for quite some time, and she has been disguising herself, taking his place so she could stay near Bayaz while he searches for the seed. The partially eaten corpse from Book 1, the blade itself, that was found outside of the House of Chains where Logan and Bayaz were staying, that was apparently Malachus Kwai, and when Ptolemy killed him. And she was the one who ate part of his corpse. So we finally know whose corpse that was. Ptolemy is working to recombine the other side and this world, undoing the work that Hughes, who is Cnedius's father, which would make him Ptolemy's grandfather. But she's working to recombine the worlds. Ptolemy also reveals that it was actually Bayaz who threw Ptolemy out of the Maker's house, not Cnedius. So we're starting to see that, well, we've already seen this, but this is just another lie that Bayaz has been caught in. He's starting to not look like such a great person. After this discussion, Yolwei Bayaz fight Ptolemy. Pharaoh also joins in. She ends up getting her arm broken. Yolwei ends up occupying Ptolemy, or the eater that now occupies Ptolemy's body. This allows Pharaoh and Bayaz to escape. They leave the Maker's house, and Bayaz seals the door with Yolwei and Ptolemy inside. Afterwards, Pharaoh does put the seed into the box, the protective box that protects everybody else from the powers of the seed. And after she does this, she notices that her arm is no longer broken. Now, while this is happening, the Gurkish are almost at the Agriont, which is the inner city in Adwa. And West and the Union Army, along with some of the Northmen with Logan, have finally arrived to Adwa. They then begin fighting through the Gurkish lines that were set up around Adwa, and they make their way towards the inner city of Agriont. As West and the Union Army make their way towards the Agriont, they and they're fighting away through Gurkish enemies. They notice that a different fleet of ships has arrived, and Column West sees Lord Orso, who is Princess Therese's father. Princess Therese, who's the one who is married to now King Jazal. And he has brought 10,000 soldiers and a fleet to help battle the Gurkish. So the marriage to Princess Therese was not a total waste. West also discovers that General Poulter has been killed in action. We jump over to Glocka. He is still trying to figure out who the mole is in his organization. And after some digging, he figures out that it is in fact Severard. So he, with Practical Frost's help, they imprison him and torture him for information, and after he gets what he needs, he ends up executing Severard. Severard was the spy for Valent and Bulk Bank. He was how they were getting all the information and staying up to date on all of Glocka's dealings. Unfortunately, at this same time, it is revealed that Frost is also a spy, but for the other side of the fence, for Archlector Sult. He's how Archlector Sult has figured out, or was staying up to date on everything that Glocka was doing. As soon as Frost realizes that Glocka has figured it out, he punches him. They get into a fight, and before Frost is able to kill Glocka, RD, who has been with Glocka this entire time because Glocka is trying to protect her, comes up from behind and stabs him with the butcher's knife that Glocka was using to torture Severard with. Frost turns around, hits RD, and while he's distracted doing that, Glocka grabs his cane and hits a button on it, and it becomes a fencing sword. So while Frost, for that moment, is distracted with RD, he stabs Frost and kills him. Glocka now knows that Archlector Sult is privy to his plans to find some evidence of treason against him. So Glocka discerns that there's probably more practicals who are working for Archlector Sult who are on their way to make sure that Glocka was killed here. And so he and RD flee. They stay off the streets by traveling through the sewers. They use the navigator who Glocka hadn't killed but had tortured for information earlier in the book. The navigator helps navigate through the sewers, and they need to get back to the Inquisition. So the points of view are changing really fast here at this point. Looks like we are getting to the climax of the story. While all this is happening, Bayaz and Pharaoh are setting up a trap for the 100. That's the group that Mamun, who is the first apprentice of Kulul, that's what him and his gang are called. The 100 are obviously eaters. Bayaz at least believes that they are going to come to him. They want to kill him. They want to get revenge for Kulul against Bayaz. So he and Pharaoh are setting a trap, but at this point we don't know what it is. Glocka, Ardia, and their mercenaries make it to the House of Questions. They go to Sult's office, but they don't find him there. Instead, they find Superior Goyle. Glocka detains Goyle, tortures him, has him sign a confession attesting to Sult's presumed treason. Goyle tells Glocka that Sult has been trying to contact the other side to get help from the demons on the other side for the fight against the Gurkish. And he also tells him that Sult is currently at the university, so Glocka and his crew all go to the university to find Sult. Before this, now that Glocka has a piece of evidence against Sult, he goes to take it back to Morovia. only to find that Morovia has been murdered, and the room is cold. The way that it gets described implies that Morovia was killed by the arts by something. They don't know. They don't know who did it. While this is happening, we jump back to Logan. He is continuing to make his way through the Agriont, and he decides to start heading towards the Maker's house. So things start happening really fast right now. We're jumping back and forth between points of view, between all of our major characters very quickly. Glocka's group on their way to seek out Sult at the university. They come across Jazal's group, and Artie and Jazal see each other. They try to talk for a moment, but before they can say anything, there is a large explosion. Glocka also notices that Morovia is with Jazal's group, but I thought we saw Morovia dead in his office, so we're not really sure who that actually is. Glocka also doesn't have time to figure out who that actually is. We quickly jump over to Bayaz and Pharaoh. Bayaz was correct. Mamun and the 100 are approaching. They've found Bayaz and they have a little discussion. Nothing major was revealed in the discussion. They just recap their bad blood, why Mamun needs to exact vengeance from Bayaz. So a lot of things get repeated here. Mamun doesn't know that Bayaz and Pharaoh have the seed. Bayaz uses the seed, and it seems to work. I don't know if anybody is a Wheel of Time fan. It seems to work like a Saw Angreal, where it amplifies his power. So he uses it and starts just absolutely laying waste to the Eaters and Mamun. He ends up killing basically all of them. Also, a large storm starts getting whipped up by Bayaz. This large storm, Pharaoh starts hearing voices coming from it, and it appears that these voices are coming from the other side. Her devil's blood is allowing her to communicate, or at least hear communication coming from the other side. They're telling Pharaoh to let them out, and she is not responding to them at this point. We jump over to Jazal's group with Morovia and the Kingsguard. They are retreating at this point. They make it back to the palace, and when they get inside the palace, there are actually Eaters in there, and they are attacked by them. When it appears that the Eaters are going to kill Jazal after they've killed all of his Kingsguard, the person who has the appearance of Morovia begins to successfully fight back. Then we see his face melt away. This is obviously a disguise, and it is revealed that it is actually Yoru Sulfur, who is Bayaz's apprentice. And Yoru is killing the Eaters with a weapon that was made by the Maker. Glocka has now made it to the university. He finds the room that Archlector Sult is in, and he discovers that there are 4 university adepti in there with him. They are performing a ritual to contact the other side, just like Goyle said that they were. And Glocka and his mercenaries put a stop to this ritual and arrest Sult. So with the arrival of the Union, with Bayaz using the seed to overcome Mamun and his 100, with the arrival of Orso and his 10,000 soldiers and fleet, they have successfully pushed back the Gurkish, and it appears that they have won the fight.